All right, everybody, back for another episode today of What in the World. Not a whole lot of FaceTime for me today. I wanted to start off with this beautiful family that's sitting in front of you. My guest today is Miss Mallory Ratcliff. Her parents, you see them flanked on each side of her, Bruce and Belinda. Mallory, first of all, I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank your parents for being here today. All right, so the book that you wrote, it's near and dear to your heart because it is your life story, essentially. So why don't you tell us where exactly the whole fearless concept, the book concept, came from?
It came from the beginning of my life when I started having seizures, and it just talks about my life with surgery and everywhere I've been, Cleveland, New York.
The book is sort of the reason she decided to do the book was when Mallory was probably elementary age. She had epilepsy, and we were looking for some type of resource to help her. And we had gotten a book that a young lady had written during her high school years, and it helped us a bunch. So Mallory decided after she got out of high school that she wanted to do something similar. And so it really wasn't until after she graduated from high school that she started working on this. But the book starts when she was 15 months old. And she talks about her family and us. And then she goes into what happened the very first time she had a seizure. And it actually happened at our home. She was 15 months old, and Molly Kirkendall was at our house doing swimming lessons. We had a pool, and she was doing swimming lessons, and Mallory wanted to go outside, so I walked outside with her, and she had had a fever earlier that day, but I thought she was feeling a little bit better, so we went outside, and she went into a seizure. And of course, we were shocked because she had never experienced anything like that. But fortunately, there was somebody at the house with me, Molly, and then a friend from down the street was there with her daughter. And so my friend took our older daughter, Meredith, with her to her house. And then Molly drove me and Mallory to the hospital, Marion General. And then Molly went to the high school to tell Bruce, what was going on, that we were at the hospital at Marion General. And the seizure continued for about 45 minutes. So it was hard to watch. I mean, we were, I guess we were in shock, didn't really know what to do. And the doctor at the ER handled it well, though. He contacted her doctor in Hattiesburg about what to do. He did it, and then luckily it stopped. And then they transferred us to Forest General, and we spent about a week there at the hospital. So that she had the first one. It was on a Friday afternoon. We went to Forest General. She had two more the next day that were also prolonged. And she ended up on the ventilator for about 24 hours, I guess.
Yeah, probably a little more than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Probably. And, Forest General was not really equipped for pediatric type stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the doctor that was there was familiar with some things. So there was an opportunity that we could have moved her to Jackson. But in that time frame, there was some things going on with the helicopter that would not allow them to take off. They do maintenance checks, I think, and things like that on their helicopters, and this one happened to be down for that one. And what was really amazing was that the one in Jackson was also down for the same thing, so we couldn't move her. The doctor said that we could have done it in an ambulance, but he would have had to, since she was on a ventilator, they would have had to bag her all the way. He said, we're going to stay here. So we ended up staying in Forest General, for about a week, I guess. It was about that long. She had, like she said, prolonged was the first one, Belinda said, was like 45 minutes. I had gotten there before it ended from school. We were going out of town. I was taking about half a day off, and we were going to see our nephews play baseball. And so I was already in the transition of trying to get home because it was around lunchtime when all that happened. So that's kind of the early part that she probably would not remember a lot of. A lot of bits and pieces that fall in between there that we could talk a long time about. But eventually we got home, and
they started her on a medication as a preventative, and we did get an appointment with a pediatric neurologist in Jackson, sort of just to assure us that we were doing the right thing. As she came home, she went back to daycare after probably about 2 weeks, I guess. Went back to daycare, and she really did well the next year. She didn't have any more problems, and so she was. They had her on phenobarbital, and they generally don't like to keep them on that for a long period of time because it can affect their learning and development. So after a year, we started weaning her off of it, and she got completely off of it. And then within 3 months, she had a seizure at home one morning before school, and it was lasting longer than I felt comfortable. And luckily, they had given us a rescue medication to give her at home if she had a prolonged seizure. So we did that, and it stopped. So we actually took her in the car back to Forest General, and I think she stayed 3 or 4 nights that time. Changed medications, and then it did help, but she would have breakthrough seizures from time to time, and then she had had several MRIs, but nothing had ever showed up on her MRI until probably she was about 4 or 5. And she had an MRI, and they noticed an area in her left temporal lobe. And so they thought that's probably the location where the seizures were coming from. They weren't sure exactly what had caused it. They think it may have been from a stroke that she had had in the womb. So, and I remember I had been to a Epilepsy Foundation meeting in Hattiesburg, and the doctor that was speaking at it was talking to me after the meeting, and I was telling him what was going on with Mallory, and he said, well, she'll probably eventually end up having to have surgery. And my first response was, there is no way that I would let my child, have brain surgery, but then things happened after that, we realized that even though brain surgery sounded very extreme, that she was safer sometimes. She was safer in an OR with a doctor doing brain surgery than she was having a prolonged seizure in the classroom at school or on a vacation. So that's kind of when we decided it was time to look at possibly surgery.
So then that was when we go ahead.
I had two questions before we
Okay.
get any deeper in the story. First of all, from a time standpoint, like a time stamp for the beginning, first seizure, 15 months old. What year would that have been?
She was born in May of 99.
May of 99.
May of
Okay, and I got it.
99.
And I'm not a medical professional, and I don't claim to be. And I know the concept of epilepsy, but I don't know all the intricacies of it like you guys would. You guys are probably medical professionals at this point as it pertains to it. 15 months old. That sounds extremely young to have had a seizure.
It is. It
What
is.
like is that a very rare case to have a seizure that early?
Not really. Some children have them.
We've met people that were younger than that had
That have had
seizures.
seizures.
Yeah.
Wow, that is it, man.
We've had opportunities over the years to meet people and do things, but so yeah, but it was definitely life changing for me and Belinda to sit there and watch that happen. You know, so.
Right. Well, Mallory, at 15 months old, you probably didn't have a real concept of what was going on, but by 3 or 4 years old, like your mother was talking about, what was going through your mind at that time?
I was just having my childhood and playing out on the playground in my backyard.
Well, she said that you would have for a solid year, everything was going pretty good, and then you had another a rash. I don't want to say a rash of seizures. I do know that sometimes they're clustered together.
Right.
You
Can
clusters
be caused
of
in clusters, right.
So
Well, I'll let you tell Mallory. You tell how you had an aura. You knew how sometimes when they were coming on. So tell them about that.
When you
When you
were
were
before
young,
your first.
you
first
have
one.
you have a superpower. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
How would you feel before you had a seizure?
I would feel nauseous.
So
before.
that was a kind of letting you know ahead of time.
It's like a trigger.
She would tell me, "Mama, my stomach hurts."
Yeah. If you heard that, it was
Really?
it was likely that something was going to happen soon.
Yeah.
So is that something that would be considered normal among folks?
They
that have
call them auras.
Yeah.
They call them auras, that you can have an aura. She has an aura now that she knows. She still has some little breakthrough things, not nearly as severe as those. In fact, not as severe because she has to tell us that she has one now. But,
Right.
So tell them what your aura is now.
Now it's where my face tingles, and I kind of lose my hearing.
Yeah, we thought for a while that she was just ignoring us because it was like,
Well,
but it was.
you
it
know,
was,
I don't know. She's a little older now, but as a teenager, that was normal.
Yeah,
It would
right.
be ignored. Yeah. All right. So, how many? You guys know what exact number? How many surgeries has she had to have?
She's had. You go ahead.
I've had two.
Okay.
when? Not years, but how old was?
Yeah, I was thinking, say how far apart and all that kind of stuff.
My first surgery was when I was 6,
Okay.
and my second surgery was when I was 17.
Okay. Now, was that a strategic move on y'all's guys' part to have them that far apart, or
Why did you, at the age of 17, why did you? She actually decided.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Because I was having a lot of seizures almost every day, and I was just telling my parents I wanted a second surgery, and it pretty much helped.
Well, good.
The first surgery she had, she was in the first grade, and she was having the prolonged one still before that. And our doctor in Jackson suggested we go to the Cleveland Clinic, so that's where we went. And she had testing for like a week for them to find the seizure focus,
Okay.
and it was all external testing. It wasn't anything that was invasive or anything. So she had an EEG, MRI, that type thing. They always did neuropsychological testing to kind of see how she was progressing, if she was progressing like she should. But and after the first surgery, she was seizure free for about two and a half years.
Okay.
So we were really hopeful that was it. We're really hopeful that was it. And I guess that was first surgery. And then I guess it was her third grade year. She was in Miss Wynn Maley's room. and she had a short seizure. And a theory with seizures sometimes is that a kindling effect. So if you have one seizure, you are more prone to having a second one and then a third one. It's like your brain learns how to perform that, learns how to do that. And so sometimes it gets into a, like you said earlier, a cluster.
Like I said, y'all are the experts. I mean, you guys been, her entire life. So,
Yeah.
And what it is was that there was what they called a lesion in her left temporal lobe, which is like almost like a dead area, or it's almost like cutting a wire, and the signals won't be able, they can't connect. And so at that time, when she was 6, they were very careful because of where the location was. The location was very close to her hearing, her motor skills. That's eyesight, I guess.
No,
wasn't eyesight, but it was hearing and motor skills. So they had to be very careful. Okay, and so they only went as far as they felt like they could go. Now, the doctor that did it, Dr. Bingaman, in Cleveland, that's all he did. He was. That's like taking if you have a Cadillac, you don't take your Cadillac to a Ford dealership. No offense to Ford, but you want the best work on the car. So
a true specialist, because that's what he did.
And that's all he did was on pediatrics. So it was like that was a no-brainer to take her there because that's all he did. And so that's what we did, and they went as far as they could go. And but from that point to the 17-year-olds, when she turned 17-year-old, technology had kind of advanced a little bit, so they could go a little bit further. And they did a few more things, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
But in her first surgery, Mallory, tell them about removing your hair, how that worked, and what you did with your hair during your first surgery.
They cut the left side of my hair off, and when I looked in the mirror, I was kind of upset.
You were devastated, yeah.
So my mom kind of covered it up, and my dad told me that the stitches look like a baseball, and that made me kind of feel
like
better.
The laces on the baseball. So.
Yeah.
But what did you do with your hair? She had really long hair at the time. So what did you do with the hair, like the ponytail? You remember?
I did locks of love.
Locks of love, yeah.
So,
That's fantastic. Oh, Mel, let me ask you a question. Your mother mentioned earlier that you had a seizure early, and you returned to preschool after you had it a couple of weeks later. So that was 2 weeks worth of time you missed from a seizure to returning back to, a little bit of normalcy. If you had a seizure, like how much time would you miss, like in a school setting, for example? Like if you had a seizure on a Monday, let's say, how much time would you miss, like in school, for example?
Just like one day, maybe.
Yeah, it depends on the severity. I'm assuming. So,
Yeah.
and let me ask you another question. As you had these seizures throughout your time in school, they were like she was talking about prolonged ones, 45 minutes long. Did they get less and less intense and were shorter, or did they keep a pattern like if you had a seizure, did it last 15 minutes and then the next one you had lasted about 15 minutes, or did they vary?
They got a little bit shorter, but I still had the long ones.
And it was kind of odd. She would get in like a cycle. Like she would have a seizure almost like every Friday for like the month of May. Let's say it would be almost like clockwork. She would have a seizure, and then
School was almost out. I know.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
I know. I see through that.
And then sometimes, like I guess when she did get older and we were looking at possibly the second surgery, sometimes she would have multiple seizures in a day. Like she might have one upon awakening, and then maybe 2 hours later another one, 2 hours later another one. And those were usually smaller, shorter, but sometimes she would have multiple in a day. And the most common time for people to have a seizure is either when you're waking up or when you're going to sleep. And that is because your brain waves change as you're waking up and as you're going to sleep. So, so her most common, especially the the long seizures happened early in the morning or late in the evening, right before bedtime. So,
You guys could probably lead a conference on epilepsy and the conditions of epilepsy.
Well, and the thing with her was that Belinda said that they happen, a lot in a row or something. A lot of times, we did find out eventually that one trigger. That's what you try to figure out is what's triggering. We went through the food thing. Okay, is there food that's triggering this? Is it something we're eating? I think we did Atkins. We did every diet thing you could do with food. That wasn't the case, but eventually found out. I don't even know exactly how we found out, but sleep deprivation. She had to have so many hours of sleep a day, and that went on for years, like through high school almost.
tell him how much sleep you had to have as a general rule.
I had to have like 8 hours of sleep.
Or 10.
Or
Usually
10.
What did you, let me ask you a question. Did you catch up in the summertime when school was out? You just slept like 1 o'clock every day?
I did.
See, my kids did the same thing. Maybe that's,
Yeah, we would let her sleep in the summer. We'd let her sleep as long as she wanted to, but school time was when it was tough because you get to where you're junior high and you get to where you're high school. It's hard to say, okay, you got to go to bed
Yeah.
at 8:30.
and them teachers piling all that work up on you too. And you got to get it done before you get back. I know what you're talking about.
So one thing you want to do is we look for triggers and ended up finding, and we found that out through testing. And I mean, like I said, we could go on for 2 or 3 hours on, all the things that we did at different hospitals and with different doctors.
Yeah,
So
after her first surgery that didn't completely work completely, we went back. We would go back to Cleveland about every year for testing, and we had gone back 1 year. And before you have an EEG, they like for you to wake up early so that you are having some brain waves that can be unusual, and they can maybe not see a seizure, but at least can see the unusual wave changes in your EEG. So they had us wake her up early that morning before her EEG, and she actually had a really prolonged seizure while she was having her testing done. We were outpatient, but she had a
We were
really
headed home.
prolonged seizure. So we had to give her the rescue medicine twice. Did not help, and so she ended up in ICU. This was all unexpected. We were in Cleveland, thank goodness. And so the doctor was real concerned, about it. They finally got the seizure to stop. And but then after they went back and looked at the EEG, they said that they just felt like it was the trigger for the big seizure was her waking up early. So he said that he wrote across the top of her chart, no sleep deprivation for the princess, for Sleeping
That's what
Beauty.
he told her. He
That's
called
what-
her the princess.
That's what he called her, Sleeping Beauty, because she had to have that sleep because that really triggered.
And believe it or not, Belinda don't think so, and I didn't at the time, but it was really a blessing in disguise that they finally got to see what we have seen over the years. So we were there, we were in an appointment, we were with the doctor. In fact, we may have been out in the waiting room. Were we out in the waiting room?
Yeah, we were in the waiting room.
It's
They
easy
called
when
us
it
back.
It's easy to tell the story, but when they see it unfold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it
when
was
you-
not
yeah,
easy to
Yeah,
experience.
it's like they started scrambling
Yeah.
when it happened. So.
Well, and something else funny that we always tried to find the humor in situations, or at least spin it in a positive way, to make life as normal as possible for Mallory. And so I guess it was after she had this prolonged seizure, she went into ICU for 24 hours. Then she got out and went into a regular room. And the room was a pediatric room, so it was decorated with Nemo.
She
and
don't think
Bruce
it's
the
that
shark,
fun.
and all that was in the room, painted on the room. And so she was coming off all these meds that they had pumped her full of to stop the seizure. And tell him what happened.
I had this dream that felt real, and I saw Bruce, all the sharks from Finding Nemo, and after that happened, when I woke up, I never watched it.
You don't even
again.
watch the movie anymore. do you?
No.
Just
We don't
ruin-
even mention it no more.
Just ruined it
She
for
was
you.
actually having some hallucinations from the medications
Right.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I mean, if
And
I woke up,
all of the animals, the fish started moving around.
Yeah.
To her, they were moving around the
I
room.
was fixing to say, if I woke up and a shark was staring me down, I'd be
Yeah.
freaked
So-
out too.
And his
So.
name was Bruce too. So that
I
really
know,
messed her
I know.
up. So,
Well, he's not Bruce the Legend. Now, remember that.
that's right.
Yeah.
So
All right, so you made mention of you used the term as normal as possible. Explain to the viewers. Just take any random year throughout this whole process, and what was the most normal year you guys experienced over this whole process?
Um,
Now, when I say normal, I mean chaotic in a different way, not
right. Well, I guess I could think about like her senior year in high school. We started school. You know how they ride the flatbed truck. The seniors ride the flatbed truck into the high school, and she was able to participate in that. She had had a really good summer, and her doctor in Jackson, we had already talked about if she started having a lot of seizures, that she would probably do some testing after her senior year was over, kind of take a year to do some testing before she started any college work. So we were thinking at that point, we weren't going to do any kind of testing or medical testing that year. So we started out with the senior ride float to the high school. Well, within the first month, she started having seizures every day. I was having to go to the school and get her. And so we got the note from the doctor asking for her to start doing her schoolwork from home. And we were very blessed with some very understanding teachers at the high school that, sent her work home. And then by October, we had decided, we needed to go to Cleveland. So she went back in for testing.
and again, that was a lot of her prodding of saying, I need to get this done.
Well,
I
she
need
realized
something.
she didn't want to live having a seizure every day.
Right,
right,
Who wants
right.
to, And they were not all big, bad seizures, but sometimes even a small seizure would make her feel really bad. Like she would sleep 4 or 5 hours sometimes afterwards. And then she would wake up with a terrible headache, and just be exhausted. And then the next day she would probably feel the same way, it was just, so we ended up back in Cleveland. It was around Halloween actually for testing. And then she came home and had her senior portraits made. We got that fitted in, and that's when we got the results that they wanted us to come back, have some invasive testing done. So we went back after Christmas. Well, she did get her senior project done before Christmas was over. So we got that checked off the list. And luckily, Meredith was home from Ole Miss. She graduated the year before.
That's our oldest daughter.
And so she was helping with the senior project. Thank goodness she helped with that project. And so after Christmas, I guess it was towards the end of January, we went back to Cleveland and had the invasive testing done and the second surgery. Then she came home, and with invasive testing, she had to be put. It was surgical, and she had to go to surgery.
Mhm.
And she did have to have her whole head shaved for that. So that was a shock for me because we really didn't know we were going to have to do that.
Right.
But Mallory, she took it fine. She was like, whatever it's going to take, to get this done.
And I don't know if that part of it was really covered as far as what they did with that in the book.
Yeah, probably not.
But yeah, it was pretty. They put electrodes all in your head, like little drill holes, and stick these things down into where they can map out to see where the seizure's coming from. And it came back that it was the same location as the first time.
Right.
So therefore, that's why I said earlier about technology had changed some, so they could really pinpoint a little bit more. So we don't want to give away too much all the book stuff. So
Right.
So because
Well, I'm a little terrified because I asked
some of this is in the book,
what the most normal year was throughout,
so.
and she just terrified me with some of the stuff she just told.
We
So
had a lot of normal years where but normal to us was not normal to everybody else.
But it did end normal after she got back from surgery. She was in the musical,
Right.
like within a month. You know,
she participated
she
in that.
participated in the musical.
She got to graduate. She graduated and did all that stuff.
Yeah.
And,
She was a back girl. She was a
she
diamond
was a
girl.
diamond girl, and so there was a lot of that was normal. Now, like I said, there was a lot of normal stuff that went on in between all that. Pretty much, other than our time frame, like if we were on vacation and bedtime had to be a certain time, everybody had to shut down. If we were somewhere, and we knew that. Everybody knew that. Meredith knew that. Our oldest daughter, she knew what the routine was. So, but getting to the book, Mallory, tell them about the name and what triggered y'all writing the book and how you wrote the book. As far as you and it's basically her and her mama did the book writing.
Well, I didn't figure you
I
had
am
a
not
whole
an
lot.
English person at all. So how did the name of the book?
The name of the book came from a song I heard, and
That would be a good title.
I thought it would be a good title.
Well, from what I've heard so far of the
Yes.
story, I think you nailed it.
Well, and two, you want to share. She wanted to share her story so that she could help other
people.
right in similar situations. Not everybody's medical journey can be different, or maybe not even medical, but because a lot of people have disabilities other than just medical. But everybody's story is different in life, and so we just hope that it relates to others that have similar situations.
So you and Mama, how did y'all write the book? As far as when did you start? When did you start writing the book?
We started right after I graduated, and we would work on it every once in a while, and like on the road, at home, or if I was at work with her.
Yeah, for a while after she had surgery, we didn't feel comfortable with her being at home. So a lot of times she would come to work with me. So we kind of just hang out. So
Ain't nothing wrong with that, that's for sure. Now, let me ask you a question. How many times can you remember back throughout this whole journey where you just had to sit your parents down at the dining room table or at the kitchen bar and go, hey, it's gonna be okay, guys? Because you know their stress levels had to be way up there, and of course I know your stress level was way up there. But when did you have to be the adult in the discussion and go, hey, it's gonna be okay? Yeah, I got to go to Cleveland. No big deal. That's my second home.
That would probably be my second surgery.
Was it? I mean, were they not against it, but were they really apprehensive about you doing the second surgical procedure? You had to kind of talk them into it.
I was, so I didn't want to go back, but at that point she's 17 and fixed to be 18, and it's like, okay, she pretty much.
Well, most
knows,
17-year-olds know everything.
She pretty much
anyway,
knows what's going on in her own body, and I don't know what she's going through every day, and she felt like that was basically the right thing to do at the time. So
well, I do know she got some probably good advice, because when she was in school, she was hanging out with a bunch of know-it-alls, because my son, for example, graduated high school with her, and he knows everything. So she asked him, he told her what was going on. So, matter what's how from the time you thought about putting this book together to the time it's actually sitting in front of us, you see a copy sitting in front of us here on the video. What kind of time frame are we talking about? How much time passed? You said you started right after you graduated high school. Okay, and you when did it actually go to print?
This year.
Okay, in first part of 2024.
Yes.
Okay, that's a labor of love project there.
About 8 years.
You took a lot of time, but that's a lot of story to tell.
Yes.
And it's not a huge book. It's a really good. My wife described it as a really amazing afternoon read, which my wife can sit down and grind through. It'd probably take me 3 weeks to read that book, and I'd have to be real dedicated to it. So, just like he's not an English guy, I'm not much of a reader guy. AI has almost ruined me on that. I just AI everything now. So where anybody that's interested in trying to find this book, I know here locally where we're based out of, it's easier to find because you got some local outlets. But where do we have it available in other places? Do you have larger markets that they're able to get it through, online type stuff?
You can get it on Amazon or
Book Baby.
Book Baby.
Now, as Book Baby, that sounds very familiar. Is that the publishing company that
Right.
actually?
Yeah, that's the one that.
They're part of Amazon. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first I'd ever heard of Book Baby. I had to look them up. I did.
And locally, you can get it at Good News Brewing.
Right.
Out on 98, you can get it there. And I believe those are signed.
They are signed copies.
Yeah, those are signed copies of it. So
Yeah, now for our viewers that are checking this out all over the place, this Columbia, Mississippi is the local market they're talking about. For you guys that are halfway across the world and interested in a copy, you need to jump on Amazon or Book Baby.
Mhm.
Book Baby. Mallory, advice for anybody. Take the next couple minutes advice for anybody that's going through any situation similar to this. It doesn't have to be dealing with epilepsy, just dealing with a medical, I don't say crisis because it's not a crisis because you didn't let it become a crisis. You actually triumphed. So tell somebody that needs to hear what is the best advice you can give them.
Never give up, and always live by something my dad told me, and that was believe, receive. It's John 3:16.
Believe,
I always
receive.
live by that.
Look at him. I'd have never believed he'd come with anything that good, man. All right. I didn't thank you guys enough for being here today. Mallory, can't thank you enough for being here, sharing your story. And for all the viewers, I'll have the information about how to get her book linked in the description below. So, you guys, did the parents of young Mallory have anything they'd like to share before they get out of here?
well, I would say that if you are in a situation where you're there is a medical situation going on in your house, and it may be a prolonged like epilepsy, it don't go away. Okay, so try not to restrict your child too much. There are things you have to do, but there are also things that you need to say, okay, I'm gonna pull the reins and I'm gonna let it go and let her do what she thinks she can do. And she does a lot of things now. I mean, she cooks. Hasn't burnt the house down yet, which is a good thing. So she cooks and does a lot of things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do. Don't dwell on the things you can't do. So you got anything?
That's it. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate being
I
here.
appreciate you guys being on. All right, guys, that's another episode of What in the World. Thank our guests again today, Mallory, for being on here and her parents. We'll see you guys next Monday at this same time.